actually take the time to write it down.
Yes.
Because if it is not distinguished, even if you're doing it wonderfully, it does not exist.
Yes.
It doesn't exist for others or for yourself.
I agree. I
Letting other people
agree.
help you.
I agree. That's why we write this down to get our, you know.
So Mark
get our
has a
thoughts.
really good positioning statement.
Oh, he does. Well, let's hear that one. One more.
Okay, for wine drinkers who enjoy wine on a regular basis, Lakewood Vineyards wines are wines which provide superior value and fine craftsmanship without hype. Unlike Napa Valley wineries, Lakewood wines are affordable, approachable, and designed for enjoying on a daily basis.
Very good. I like that. You know, your target market's focused for wine lovers who enjoy daily wine and things like that. Yeah. Very, very specific. Now, there's a lot of wine drinkers that only drink occasionally, right? That's not your target market for this. You want to? Okay. Very good. Okay. I mean, we can go on and on with this just positioning, so I think we should probably move on, right? Okay. All right. Any other comments before we move on? Or? Yes. Question.
You might be getting to this in your guys' what do we do with positioning statements? So we have it written down.
Yes.
Does it just stand as a reference point that we come back to?
Good question. I don't know if you heard it back there. She asked, what do we do with this positioning statement? Okay. The positioning statement guides the whole company, right? It guides everything you do in the company.
So is it like
from the front desk
objective?
person, yes, from the front desk person to the guy who ships out the box, right? They have to have that in their minds, and then it becomes an extraordinary company. It becomes a company that has a brand that,
Yes.
you know, take a look at Amazon, right? Amazon, from phone call to one-click shopping to returns, the whole company is focused on that, whatever their positioning statement is now, I don't know. So what it does is it guides the strategy, it guides your brand, it guides what you do in the business and how you do it. That answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's go to, okay, so what's the difference, right? What's the difference between a positioning statement and a brand? Positioning statement, which basically now, as you just saw, is telling why buy me. That's what the positioning statement says. Why am I buying you, right? The brand is what experience am I going to get from you? What emotional benefit am I going to get from you by buying your product? That's the difference between branding and positioning. So I'm going to go through this real quick. I won't look at this video yet. Maybe we'll do another one later. But so what's a brand anyway? Well, I mean, those marks on the right. First of all, it started out as branding for property, right? Used to, brand our cows and so on and so forth, right? But if you take a look at the right, I bet you all of you could mention all those brands by heart just by looking at the symbol, not even the name anymore, right? You know exactly what it is, right? So, let's see, that's a long one. This is David Acar. David Acar, if you look him up, he's a consulting firm called Profit Consulting, and he does a lot of consulting on branding. We call him the brand guru, basically. And this is what he says a brand is. It's far more than a name and a logo. It's an organization's promise to a customer to deliver what the brand stands for, right? For not only in terms of functional benefits, but also emotional, self-expressive, and social benefits. Why do people buy, Tom's products or Tom's shoes or things like that? Because that's social aspect. But a brand is more than delivering on a promise. It is also a journey, an evolving relationship based on perceptions and experiences that a customer has every time he or she connects to the brand. That's why positioning is important in the company. So if I have a great product and it's shipped on time and I get a bad customer service rep, you've lost it. See? So that's why brand, the customer, no matter all the connection, all the contact points that a customer has to be, has to embrace, the brand, embrace the positioning statement. Here's another one. It's a short one. I like this one. It's from James Berg, CEO of Johnson & Johnson. The capitalized value of the trust between the company and the consumer. So the capitalized value of the trust. And that's what happens, right? A brand now, you start trusting. So Apple people, you can't get them to convert to PCs, right? Who's Mac users here? Okay, there's a few Mac users. As I forget your name, the whiter guy.
Mark.
Mark. As Mark said earlier, about you know, things getting so much functionally almost the same, right? I mean, I have a PC that works just as well as the Mac, let's face it, all right? But why do we buy Mac? Because we trust Mac. We have a good experience with Mac, correct? Those are the things. And the market, and Mac, I mean, Mac can charge a premium price for that. That's worth something, right? In fact, I think they're the #1 company in brand equity right now. Different ways to measure brand equity, but so yeah, so that you build that trust, and boy, it doesn't take long to drop it, right? It doesn't take long to break that trust, as Volkswagen did not too long ago, right? As GM did with their key situation. So talking about value, let me, I'm going to show you something here. This is, okay. You guys in the front can probably see this better. Which one's bigger? Price, right? Price is bigger, right? Okay. So if I just kind of maybe move them around a little bit, which one's bigger now?
Value.
Right, value is bigger, isn't it? Okay, they're the same. So what does this really tell us? It's an illusion, right? You perceive value differently than you perceive value. I perceive value differently than someone else perceives value. So until the customer will never buy anything when in their mind they perceive this, right? But if you can change their mind to perceive that, then they will buy, right? If the value is higher. So brand adds value, as we mentioned in Apple Computer, right? So let's take a look at commodities. I mean, real quick, we'll go through this real quick. Coffee, right? 1 to 2 cents a pound. You take coffee and turn it into a packaged good. Now we can get 5 to 25 cents a cup. We can turn coffee into a service, like a Dunkin' Donuts or drive-through McDonald's or something like that, where it's $75 to $1.50 a cup, right? And of course, we can turn it into experience, where we're willing to pay anywhere from $2 to $5 a cup, right? All the way from a commodity to an experience. So that's what brand is really all about. It's about experience. What experience do I get by using your brand? Okay? So brand does make a difference, and brand does add value. Like I said, though, unfortunately, everything is branded. Everybody wants to be branded, right? So it makes it more difficult to stick out, right? It makes it more difficult. And people, as you said earlier, I think Sarah, said, or Mark, I can't remember, because of technology today, right? Consumers can switch very easily. There's not really much switching costs to switch from one brand to another. So if you don't have their loyalty, yeah, they're going to switch. So how do you get the brand to become more loyal? Okay, so we won't go through this. Everything can be branded, right? From Kleenex, from consumer products, industrial products, services. Those of you who have services back there, right? You're doing hair stuff, right? Hair, that's a service. So that can be branded. Look at Federal Express. That was a, right? There's many, but see, Federal Express now owns, when you absolutely have to, how do they say that? When you absolutely have to be there overnight. But there's other places that do it overnight, even the U.S. Post Office. But they own that now. They own that. So in consumers' minds, in fact, we use it, we say, why don't you just FedEx that? Well, we may use UPS, we may use, right? Okay. So retailers, corporations, people, right? We won't talk about the election. So let's see, commodities, yeah. Even bricks and concrete could be, there's a company called Cemex out of, is it Mexico? Cemex makes concrete, and you know, they can charge more because of whatever they do, because of their brand there. Water, my goodness. Water's free. And we're willing to pay what for it? Okay. I like to show this chart because the brand is kind of like the heart of the system. And if you look at everything goes out from there, you know, the organizational design and culture, the customer benefits, the 4 Ps of product, price, place, and promotion. This all comes from the brand's identity, right? Which actually comes from the corporate objectives. If you think about it, you have the corporate objective, right? You have the brand, and you have the identity of the brand, the essence of the brand, what the customer experience is. So that's really what, so the heart of the brand, and the reason it's heart, I think, is because the brand has to tug at your emotions. That's what branding is all about, being able to tug at your the emotional side of things. Let's see. Yeah, you know, definitions. Your brand is your promise. Okay, we won't go too far into that. I like to put this one up. You saw this last time, Mark, when you were here, but this is it's very important. That's why we're going to get this naming right now. It's very important to think of the name, especially if you're going to be a global company. Some companies are global here. I don't know if they're here, but we do have some global companies in the area. And so be careful how you translate, how names can be translated. I think you read that, right? The Flying Leathers translated into Spanish is Fly Naked. Frank Perdue, remember Frank Perdue's commercials? Takes a tough man to make a tender chicken. Tender chicken. Yeah. It sounds more interesting in Spanish. It takes a sexually stimulated man to make a chicken affectionate. That's a good one. Here's one.
Memorable.
Memorable, right? Here's one in Pepsi. When Pepsi started marketing in China, you know, the slogan was "Bring good things to life," right? But when it's translated, it says Pepsi brings your ancestors back from the grave. Brings good things to life, right? There's one more. I don't have it up here, but there's one that, unfortunately, Gerber's actually did this. Gerber's started marketing baby food in Africa. Well, in Africa, there's quite a bit of illiteracy. So when they look at food products, food packages, usually there's a picture of what's in the can for them to know what's in it.
Oh no.
Yeah, big mistake, right? So, you know, so things like that you got to be careful about when you talk about names.
Oh,
When you choose a brand name too, you know, it has to be all these things. You have to be able to remember it easily. It's got to have some kind of meaning. Can it be protected, either through trademarks or patents or whatever? It also is it adaptable to other products. So your brand name should be adaptable to other products, unless you want to use different brand names for different products, like P&G does, right, Procter & Gamble. And I always say your brand needs to own at least a word or a phrase, some kind of word or phrase, right? BMW owns the word, you know, driving, right? Ultimate driving. They own that phrase. No one else can take that position away from them. It would be very difficult to do, right? If BMW wanted to reposition their product, that's also difficult to do, right? That's also going to be difficult to reposition. FedEx, overnight. Nike, performance, Volvo, safety, we looked at that earlier. And Starbucks, of course, best coffee experience. So you need to own what I like to call a corner of the room. If this room is all of our competition, I need to own this corner. I need to own that with a word or phrase. Right? All types of brand names you can come up with, names of founders, descriptive names, acronyms, fabricated names, Uber, Twitter, and then metaphors like Apple, Amazon, Jaguar, all that, and so on and so forth. So more than a name, the brand has to trigger some kind of an association with something, right, in the consumer's mind. Right? It has to trigger some. A great brand triggers also emotions, right? And of course, you have to have some value, some promise of value to the customer. So what I'd like to do, let's see. Here's one of the biggest problems we have with branding, by the way, and position, is fear of focus. People tend to, you know, it's too wide, right? We really need to focus down and then worry about, you know, expanding to other markets. So when we do our I-Core thing for the National Science Foundation, we get them down to a very, very specific customer. And they can actually almost write, it's like an archetype of this customer, what they do, who they are, right down to a very narrow, because let's face it, when you come out with a new product, for example, or a new business, the first ones that are going to come in are going to be the, what we call the innovators, right? The people that want to experience something new. With wines, for example, you know, those innovators, if you come out with a new brand, a new flavor of wine, it's your innovators that are going to try it first, and then it spreads out. So don't be afraid to focus on a very, very specific target, because then it will grow, right? It will grow if it's valid, right? And if there's enough people that want the same value proposition that you have, that the innovators like about it, right? So fear of focus. So think about this. What word or phrase does your brand own, right? What are your personality traits? What's the personality of your brand? We know what Apple's personality is. You know, think different. It's beautiful. It's their personality is elegant. You know, it's design, right? That's what that is. And how does your brand connect emotionally with with the target market. So this is a little bit different exercise. So I've only got, I think I've only got 10 of these. So those of you who don't have a name, or I don't know who wants to use this, but if you want to come up with a name, this is a workbook. I'm going to put it up on the screen. You have a name. This is a good exercise to do. We'll go through a little by little here. This is you can break up into the same groups or however you want to do it. I got 10 of these.
I don't believe it. I just wanted her to be tall. I wanted to leverage something he's really good at.
Okay.
Being tall.
You guys see the work here?
I said the same thing.
I can write. Oh, no wonder you come up with that so quickly.
Okay. I don't know if you can see this on the screen, probably not.
Unlike
But
something, unlike Ithaca Bakery,
That's how you can
experts
see
in
it on the
bakery
screen.
understand your hunger. That's the best thing.
okay, let's the first page is a brand summary, right? Which is, this is what you're going to prepare. So start with 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. Just list what you can there for your brand. So in one sentence, how would you describe your services and or products? Then narrow it down to 2 words.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's the first one, right?
You're actually really good at that stuff.
So in one sentence, how would you describe your services and or products? And then narrow it down to 2
Words
words.
that describe me.
You have a book?
That are PG, okay. They like these.
Who needs a workbook? Who needs a workbook? Anybody else need a workbook? You want to try it? It's a good exercise.
Enthusiastic, something with energy.
Okay. You can write right in there. That's your workbook. Yeah.
One sentence helps you describe your services or products. Yours was shared.
I'm just gonna finish your word.
Yeah. Other than I'm not as
That's how he trusts.
That's right. So on the boys' side, so you didn't hear that. What market is product services and industries? Yeah, but I'm not really doing design right now, so I don't really. I can't, right? I'm not doing it, but perfect. No, I want to hire somebody to do this. I want the company, I want the business to do design and fine art.
And the middle word.
Right, yeah. Yeah, sorry. I don't think I am the most skilled at that piece of business, so it is better for my customers that someone else do that job.
Right.
After Thanksgiving, or let's organize a party.
Does very well. For my
Guys, I'm like scum.